Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak on Trust TV, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Ayuba Ilya. I will be doing this alone, of course.
Good morning, Nigerians, and thank you once again for joining us this morning. My name is Stella Iyaji.
Yeah, interesting times in Nigeria, yeah. Stella. Good morning.
Good morning.
Quite a lot really happening in the past few days, or should I say weeks. Nigerians are having to face the elections, starting with the presidential and national assembly elections, and now the governorship and state assembly elections, which you may say we are almost maybe 75%.
Yeah, we're coming to the end. We're coming to the climax, yes.
At least about 22 states have so far been announced, and some people are disappointed with the outcomes of the election. Like yesterday, I saw on social media how a couple of Nigerians in diaspora denouncing their citizenship, about how, saying that they don't want to have anything to do with, Nigeria anymore, even tearing apart their international passport, and just to show how disappointed they are.
Yeah, I understand the fact that a couple of persons may be disappointed in the process or even in the outcome, which is expected in every process. There must be a group of people that will be disappointed and a group of people that will be, satisfied with the process. However, I think that when you go by what you see on social media, you see that maybe due to misinformation or disinformation, some of the things that are sent to Nigerians in diaspora sometimes are not really true. So sometimes I feel like they do not really have a true picture of everything that is going on here. In some instances they do, but in some instances they do not have the total picture, maybe.
Perhaps it's a reflection of what the stories that they hear, a reflection of the reports that they get. Yeah, so they depend on news reports, they depend on what other family and friends
Ayuba,
will be telling them.
Ayuba, honestly, after the presidential election, I have an auntie that is in the UK at the moment, and the things she was telling me about what happened during the presidential election, I'm in a newsroom, I was surprised, to be honest. I was surprised at what she was telling me. I was like, where did you get all of this from, to be honest?
But I mean, within or outside Nigeria, it doesn't take away the fact that there are people disappointed by the outcome.
And that's
Some
very
have
true.
gone ahead to even destroy their PVCs. But hey, don't do that. Nigeria is all we've got, and we have to be here. You cannot expect a change without a fight. That's the truth. Nigeria. When I say fight here, I don't mean physical fight.
Yes.
I mean you coming out as a citizen to make sure that you play your part and make the sacrifices that is required, regardless of how difficult it may be. And so don't destroy your PVC.
And we must understand that democracy is the only option that we've got.
Yes.
Democracy is the only option. So if you destroy your PVC, what happens next? What are you saying?
After all,
so you need to, hold on to it.
After all, if you take a look at the process, it's not like it's completely bad in its entirety.
Yeah, I do not believe it was totally bad at all.
Yeah, a lot of offsets. I mean, a lot of things that ordinarily you wouldn't see happen in our politicking happening now.
And look at, for instance, this morning we saw our biggest upset. A sitting governor, sitting re-election, just lost in Zamfara State.
Exactly. So it's a major loss for the ruling party, the APC, who would have thought that, an opposition party will be able to take over from a state like Zamfara State, which is one of the states that the APC is ruling.
Yeah, and the governor lost with about over 60,000 votes, because he scored 311,976 votes, while Lawal Dere scored 377,726 votes. Lawal Dere of the PDP.
So that's a major upset. We've also seen how other political parties that you may consider as unpopular now, making inroads into the political scene. Now we have more political parties in the national assembly.
Yes, we're going to have
than we have ever had.
Yes, we have.
So that's a big one. I mean, is it in Cross River or Akwa Ibom State? The second, the first runner-up is YPP.
YPP.
A political party that people will think, it's really not popular. I mean, we've seen NNPP taking over Kano. We've seen the Labour Party in some states, making inroads in different capacities. So
Yeah.
I think that it's a major.
We have seen
it's not all bad.
We have seen a speaker who has been in the State Assembly for 20 years, who was going for his 6th term, being defeated by a 35-year-old primary school teacher. We've seen
exactly.
that.
So, I mean, think about the gains that we've made, in this election, regardless of the irregularities. I mean, I'm sure that we will continue to build on all that we have been able to achieve, in this election, but that's not to say that we'll throw away the baby with the bathwater. A lot of things, where successes were made. So don't destroy your PVC, for crying out loud.
That's a bit extreme, to be honest.
All right, so let's take a look at some of the headlines that we have this morning. At least 2 killed as army-police clash in Taraba.
Yemen conflict, 15 Saudis to be released in prisoner swap.
2023 AFCON qualifiers. Super Eagles camp swells with 12 players.
Now let's take a look at the details. At least 2 police officers have been confirmed killed by operatives of the Nigerian army in a confrontation with police personnel in Taraba State. The military in a show of force infiltrated the police headquarters in retaliation for the alleged stabbing of its personnel by the police and shot about 3 police officers. Witnesses at the scene of the incident said the soldiers came from the road leading to the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission, the venue of the Taraba State Governorship Election Collation Center, as they're shooting sporadically and deflating tires of vehicles. Citing the confrontation, the police officers on duty took to their heels for safety, while others fired back at the military. Trust TV gathered that vehicles, including that of the police commissioner's convoy, were shot and deflated within the premises of the police headquarters in Jalingo.
All right. Now, the 2 sides in Yemen's conflict say that they have agreed to exchange detainees after talks in Switzerland facilitated by the United Nations and the international community of the Red Cross. The head of the Yemeni government delegation said on Monday that about 880 detainees will be exchanged. Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi group said it will release 181 detainees, including 15 Saudis and 3 Sudanese, in exchange for 706 prisoners for the government. This is according to statements on Twitter by the head of the Houthis' Prisoner Affairs Committee, Abdul Qadir al-Murtada, and the group's chief negotiator, Mohammed Abdusalam. The exchange of about 15,000 conflict-related detainees has been under discussion as a key confidence-building measure under a December 2018 UN-mediated deal known as the Stockholm Agreement.
Now, 12 players have arrived at the Super Eagles camp ahead of the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying doubleheader against Guinea-Bissau. The team's camp opened officially on Monday morning. Alex Iwobi, Kelechi Iheanacho, Joe Aribo, Semi Ajayi, Ademola Lukman, and Kevin Akpoguma were among the early arrivals. Defender Kenneth Omero arrived in camp on Monday afternoon to increase the number to 12. The remaining 11 players are still being expected. The Super Eagles had their first official training on Monday evening at the practice pitch of the Moshood Abiola Stadium in Abuja. The players in camp are Akpoguma, Aribo, Iheanacho, Lukman, Iwobi, Ajayi, Aniagboso, Uzoho, Ndidi, Bameyi, and Omero.
All right, now to some of the packages. Diko Umar Arata of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC has been declared winner of the last Saturday's governorship elections in Katsina State. The INEC Chief Returning Officer in Katsina, Professor Muazu Abubakar Gusau, in his declaration said that Diko, having scored the highest number of votes in the Saturday's election, is declared winner. Abdullahi Yamadi has more on this.
Umaru Dekorada of the APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared winner and is returned elected.
The winner of the governorship election, Diko Umar Rada, scored 859,892 votes. to defeat his closest rival, Senator Yakubu Lado Dambarki of the PDP, who scored 486,620 votes. The All Progressives Congress (APC) took 32 state assembly seats, leaving PDP with only one, while the result of state assembly seat for Kankia local government was declared inconclusive. Beyond that, the results of 88 polling units were cancelled across the 34 local government areas of the state, largely due to violence, insecurity, and overvoting.
The number of registered voters in Katsina gubernatorial election stands as 3516719. Number of accredited voters 1399291.
Some party agents at the collation center commended INEC for a successful process in the state.
I felt highly delighted today to have won the elections for gubernatorial elections under this assignment I was given. We were able to deliver, and Katsina State is now in the hands of APC back again. And Dukko Radda is the governor of Katsina State, governor-elect, inshallah.
Well, naturally, if you look for something and could not get it, you will feel bad. But then, when you remember that it is God who gives power to he who he desires, you comport yourself and said, well, I have done my best. I looked for it from God, and God has decided that it is not my turn. So all we need to do now is to congratulate the winner and wish him well. PRP is the party of the future.
So we thank Almighty Allah has given us the privilege to start this exercise and finish it successfully. Why? Because that we do the election without killing, no violence, no anything. And we thank Almighty Allah has given us this day, and we take the accept of the defeat. That is a good Muslim to take any accept of any defeat.
Many Katsina residents are hopeful that the election of Dikko Radda as the new governor will open a new page, urging those who lost to consider Katsina first and rally around the incoming administration for accelerated development. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Thank you, Abdullah Yamadi, for that report. Still from Katsina State, the People's Democratic Party and its candidates who lost out at the Saturday elections in Katsina have rejected the outcome and vowed to challenge the results in court. PDP in a press briefing on Monday said the process that culminated into declaring APC's Dikko Radda as governor-elect was marred by irregularities. Abdullah Yamadi again brings us the report.
The PDP officials wearing gloomy faces described the election results as unfair and fabricated, where they called residents to disregard it in its totality. The last Saturday's elections are mere fabrications and a disaster to Nigeria's democracy because security personnel and INEC officials all compromised. To the candidates and PDP as a party, we reject the results and we will approach court to seek redress. We humbly call on President Muhammadu Buhari not to forget his promises of free, fair and credible elections to Nigerians. However, the Katsina State Governor-elect Dikko Radda, while presenting his acceptance speech shortly after his declaration as the winner of the election, extends hands of friendship and goodwill to all those who lost out in the process.
We will boost the economy, educate our children, help the vulnerable, and provide high level of public service. Visionary leadership entails very concise, attainable goals. And I believe I can lead a government that can deliver for the people of Katsina State.
He also thanked the good people of Katsina State for giving him the mandate, promising that his administration will not let them down.
I want to seize this opportunity to accept the mandate given to me by the people of Katsina State. And inshallah, I'm not going to fail you. Together, we are going to make Katsina State great. We thank the people and the government of Katsina State.
Reacting on the outcome of the election, some Katsina residents advised the governor-elect Diko Radda to carry everybody along and come up with an all-inclusive government.
Political right has been displayed. So we thank INEC and the security personnel and the institution for awareness like UNOA and the political parties.
So far so good. Diko Radda is one of the candidates so far whom led with the example, voted with the wise vote, a vote for the eloquent and vote for the entire generality who are somehow educated. The masses who always vote for the credibility.
What the incoming administration will look like will naturally show itself in the coming month. Abdullahi Ismail, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now, the Independent National Electoral Commission on Monday declared Hassan Alia as winner of the Benue State governorship election. Jimmy Azande monitored the situation in Benue and now reports.
Announcing the result, the state returning officer, Professor Farouk Kuta, said APC candidate Reverend Father Hassan Alia of the All Progressives Congress polled a total of 473,933 votes to defeat Titus Obak, candidate of the PDP, who polled 223,913 votes, and Right Honorable Herman Hembe of Labour Party, who polled 42,882 votes.
Party APC, 473,933 votes. PDP, 223,913 votes. Party LP, 41,881 votes. Hassan Alia of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
I would like to congratulate my opponents from the other parties for making it an interesting contest. The anxious period of politicking is over. Now is the time to unite and face the challenges of development. Our state, Benue, needs a total reset.
A cross-section of Benue residents described the process as credible and peaceful.
The election has shown clearly that Nigerians are democratically growing because they'll be able to express their franchise in different perspectives. The normal mindset of viewers or people was that it will follow one pattern, but this time around it has given people surprises, and I think that is good for democracy. It is giving us a very competitive platform for the leadership of this country.
The residents want the winner to act with decorum and show magnanimity and sportsmanship after his victory.
The seat is not just for themselves, it's for the entire people, even those who contested against them. Because now when you win an election, you are no longer representing your political party alone. You cannot say you go outside and you say you are the governorship candidate, you are the governor of APC, PDP, Labour, ABGA, NPP, SDP. No, you say you are the people, you are the governor of Benue State, and any other state for that matter. So whatever may have been the difference.
All right, thank you, Jimmy Azande, for that report. Now, election analysts working with the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, have expressed concerns on electoral gains and emerging threat to Nigeria's democratic consolidation. Trust TV's Sheffield Suleiman reports that the election analysis think tank also harped on increased citizens' vigilance and decisive action against masterminds of electoral violence, fraud, and impunity for a sustained democratic experience. Let's take the report.
While acknowledging the impact of technology application for the conduct of the 2023 elections and improve voter awareness and resilience, the CDD election analysts are worried over increased electoral violence, manipulations, amongst others.
It was most apparent in Zamfara, where bandits and vigilante groups were reported to have threatened voters with death if they voted for the incumbent. We also saw similar incidents of voter intimidation across all the geopolitical zones, but these were also mostly pronounced in the southeast, where something like 10% of the polling units we observed saw some element of voter intimidation compared to 4.7% nationwide.
Vote buying was higher in the southeast of Nigeria. At the same time, intimidation was more observed in the southeast and the south-south part of the country itself. And the most impacted by low deployment of security personnel, again, was in the southeastern part of the country.
They believe that enhanced citizens' vigilance and resilience, in addition to consolidation on technology application in the electoral process, will pave way for a more transparent and acceptable outcome.
We are still grappling for the vote counts, but for some places, for their resilience and determination to protect their votes, they were able to succeed. For example, in Kano, there was so much effort to undermine the voters' votes in Kano, but I think for the resilience of the people, they were able to insist that their votes must not be truncated.
One of the important issues about this election is more and more parties are winning seats, are gaining votes, and that therefore we are developing a more genuine multi-party electoral system. I think this is a significant gain.
The analysts also call for decisive action against electoral offenders to address rising cases of impunity, suppression, and subversion of public will. Shapiro Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now time for us to take a quick break, and then when we return, we'll take a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers. Join us again.
in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time for us to take a look at the dailies. On Daybreak, we have Dr. Theophilus Abba, the director of Daily Trust Foundation, with us in the studio. He'll be taking a look at the papers with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Daybreak. Well, I hope that you were able to have some rest in this season. It's not a period that many people.
I'm lucky that I'm no longer in the newsroom. If I were in the newsroom, I will have sleepless nights. You have to monitor the elections and make sure that you get the right results. But since I'm no longer in the newsroom, I've left people like Stella and maybe Ayuba. People can now do that.
Yes.
But I'm now watching the news like other readers. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Now let's take a look at the dailies now on Daybreak, beginning with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here says NNPP wins Kano, APC in Kaduna, Niger, Benue, Nasarawa, Borno, Ebonyi, Cross River. It has the riders that says PDP clinches Plateau, Rivers, Delta, Taraba, leads in Zamfara. INEC declares Adamawa poll inconclusive. Soldiers killed 2 policemen in Taraba. Collation suspended in Abia, Enugu states. You'd find all the details of that on page 4, 11, and 16, just to bring you up to speed with the outcome of the governorship and state assembly elections. Now, above the lead story, 2 killed, many abducted as bandits block Buari Jere Road. Analysts forecast interest rate hike as MPC meeting ends today. Notorious bandit Umaru Nagona killed by troops. You find that on page 17. Now, it's very interesting to take a look at the political map in the country and how it's somewhat changing. A lot of new faces in the political scene. You have so far 23 states that have been announced, the APC winning 15 and the PDP 7. You have about 9 governors seeking re-elections so far re-elected, and also others who are coming in for the first time. If you take a look, you see Umo Eno, Radda, Namadi, Aliyu, Abba, Sani, Hyacinth, Mutfwang, Bago, Inwifuru, Sharif, Otu, Fubara, and Kefas. These are some of the new names that you'll be hearing going forward as governors of those states. Now, below that, Ramadan, look out for moon tomorrow, Sultan tells Muslims. That's on page 26, and then at the footnote, Zamfara, Anambra speakers lose to PDP candidate. Kano governorship, we are studying results, will make our position known, says the APC. China, Nigeria trade deals dropped by 37 billion naira in 1 year. You'd find all the details on page 21. These are the main stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It's also on the election results. It says APC wins 15 states, PDP 6, NNPP takes Kano. And the first rider, 27 killed nationwide in election violence, thuggery. Then we have Ganduje Tambuwal candidates lose. The second rider, PDP rejects Ogun, Katsina results. Konkosia supporters defy curfew, jubilating Kano. INEC suspends Abia Enugu coalition, declares Adamawa governorship poll inconclusive. And beneath that, we have a map that shows the states that have gone to the blue. The blue there represents the APC. The states that have gone to the red, that's the PDP 6. And then we have a new color there, which is yellow, with the state that has gone to the NNPP. Then beneath that, we have someone who raises civil servant salary by 20%. Lagos husband arraigned for wife's death. Musician friend killed BDC operators, guard arrested. And just by the masthead, we have accept defeat. Delta governor-elect tells Omo Agege. And above the masthead, EFCC grills 4 NCAA chiefs over alleged 2 billion naira fraud. Anger as NMPCL hires expatriate to head subsidiary. Still on the Punch, EU observers blame politicians INEC for vote buying. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right, now let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. This morning, the lead story there, protest as INEC suspends election results in Adamawa, Abia, Enugu. It has the writers that says 2023 election lacked transparency, damaged public confidence in INEC, says EU. Sani Sule, Oborewori, Fubara, Yusuf, others declared winners. These are the main stories. And then also below the pictorial, INEC declares Kebbi gubernatorial election inconclusive. So you have another one there, lingering economic challenges push 44 firms off NGX list in 7 years. So you have inconclusive elections declared in Adamawa, Abia, Enugu, and Kebbi states. So these are the main stories this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. Still on election results. APC wins 15 states, PDP 6, NMPP takes Kano. And the rider, Labour Party leads in Abia. Fubara, Otu, Ovowori are governors-elect. And then just by that, we have a table showing the winners of these elections and the runners-up. And above that, we have polls inconclusive in Adamawa, Kebbi, Abia, and Enugu. And above the masthead, Lagos OK's 20% salary raise for workers. Payment backdated. Cash crisis, banking infrastructure for expansion. We also have expect new moon for Ramadan tomorrow, says the Sultan. JAM sets new guidelines for direct entry registrations. These are the major stories on the Nation.
All right, now let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. And on the Vanguard newspaper, you have Sheriff, Yusuf, Nwifuru, Zulum, Mutfwang, others emerge governors. You have tension in Enugu, Abia as INEC holds results collation. Electoral officers escape lynching in Niger. Beg your pardon. Police confirm killing of 2 officers by soldiers in Taraba. EU mission knocks INEC, says violence, vote buying, mad polls. 78 million Nigerian children risk water-related crisis, says the UNICEF. At the very top there, you find banks borrowing from CBN down 14% to 453.7 billion naira. These are the main stories on the Vanguard this morning.
Over now to the Leadership newspaper. Has a slightly different headline. It says, drama as INEC declares Binani's historic march inconclusive. The first writer says PVCs collected more than vote margin between APC candidate and Governor Fintiri. Then the second writer, election to hold in 47 wards across 21 Adamawa local government areas. Results suspended in Abia, Enugu. And beneath that, we have, despite weaker naira, Nigeria's foreign trade surplus rises by 162%. Cash crunch killing businesses, Afenifere laments. And we also have a picture of 3 newly elected lawmakers with the caption, New Kids on the Block. 3 new legislators in their 20s share plans for state. And just above the masthead, we have APC consolidates, wins Benue, Borno, Cross River, Kaduna, Nasarawa, Sokoto, Ebonyi, while PDP retains Bauchi, Delta, Rivers, and retakes Plateau. These are the major stories on the Leadership for today.
All right, now let's get some more perspectives on some of the stories that we have for you this morning. Like we told you, we have Dr. Theophilus Abba, the director of Daily Trust Foundation, with us in the studio. Thanks again, Doctor, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, it's all about the outcome of the governorship and state assembly elections. We've seen some new faces now in the political space. and some of the governors re-elected. However, some are not that lucky. So, for instance, we understand that the Zamfara State Governor has lost his re-election bid. How does that come to you in your assessment of the election?
Well, if you look at the elections, I mean, so far, it's a classic sense of power struggle. You know, it has gone beyond printing the ballot papers to struggle among the political heavyweights, you know, and who gets the highest number of votes. I mean, raw power struggle. That's what we are witnessing now. To struggle among the political heavyweights to grab power at the in various states. And I've also noticed that the fortunes of the PDP keeps diminishing, you know, and that is quite sad because we are likely now not going to have a very robust or the opposition if the PDP keeps going down. You remember the PDP was in power for some years, but now from being a dominant party, and right now it's only 6 states that PDP has. And then we noticed that the APC, which is supposed to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, it's 7 now. The PDP has 7 states.
Has 7 states now, okay.
And based on the results that have been
announced so far. Yeah. Then the APC, which is supposed to be at a disadvantage because of what we say, the poor performance of the party is, gaining more momentum. So it's like, you know, I don't know. The result of the election is showing the parties that are making more effort, to actually grab power, not so much as what they are putting on the table.
But,
you know?
And Dr. Abba, when you look at this election, the state governorship election and the presidential, during the presidential, we saw a lot of upsets. Yes. We saw a lot of governors, sitting governors, unable to win their bid to the Senate. We also saw chairman of a party losing his state. We saw the president and the governor of his state losing the state to the PDP. But we found that in the governorship, apart from the biggest upset which we have seen from Zamfara, and we saw that, and Kano was almost expected. But apart from that, we saw that the APC was able to reclaim some of those states that it lost during the presidential. Yes. What do you think happened?
I think after the presidential election, the APC was destabilized. You know, then the 1 week extension, I don't know, even though it was because of this issue of configuring beavers, I know. But I think the 1 week extension, helped the APC to actually reorganize itself, So I think what has happened in this election, demonstrates that people can actually overcome, the initial shock. What I've noticed is this: for the results that were declared early, those that were declared maybe on Saturday and maybe on Sunday, we saw some upsets. But as the results were delayed, we suspect that some kind of manipulative activities were going on, and that is why even areas that you hear about a particular party leading, you now discover that they are no longer leading. The APC is winning and all this. I'm not saying the APC is fraudulent. That's not what I'm saying. But then the delay in the release of the elections in some places gives room for a kind of insinuation that some things were going behind the scene, and the struggles to change figures and things like that were happening.
Okay. Well, we've seen a lot of I would say appraisals of the performance of INEC as far as the elections are concerned, and the EU has also released a statement also appraising the performance of INEC. It blames politicians and INEC for vote buying. So those are some of the stories that we are seeing. So in terms of the irregularities that have been pointed in this governorship and state assembly elections, when you put that side by side with that of the presidential election, have we really learned anything, and have we seen any improvement?
Well, I use one phrase, I say power struggle. I used it earlier. I think The main problem we have with elections in Nigeria has to do with the desperation of politicians. You see, if you look at how desperate politicians have been over the years, not just in this election, but in previous elections. You know, if you remember the, I don't know, you may not remember, the 1965 election, we had serious crisis, both in the 64 federal election and 65 election in Western Nigeria. And you know that the crisis led to the coup and the civil war because politicians were very, very desperate. You know, if vote buying did not start in this election, if you look at the history of vote buying in Nigeria, right from the first election that was conducted in 64, 65, there was a whole lot of vote buying, a lot of manipulations. Now, if you come to the 1983 election, we also had issues like that. You know, that was the Omoborio versus Ajasin election, Michael Ajasin election, which led to a serious crisis in Ondo State. And based on that crisis, the military had a reason to intervene in 1983, 84. That was the first coup, you know. And so desperation of, politicians in Nigeria is actually affecting democracy. And I'm happy that EU is making a statement because EU is one of the funders of the current electoral exercise. EU provides a lot of funds because they want Nigeria to get things right. Okay. And EU does so. Okay. EU does so because they want to see democracy work in Nigeria. But politicians especially, we blame INEC, but then politicians are too desperate. What we thought is this: if you want to become the president, you want to become the governor, let us have your agenda. But in the current election, we don't even know what NNPP stands for. We don't know what PDP stands for. We don't know what APC stands for. We don't even know what Labour Party stands for, except that Labour Party is supposed to be a leftist party. I don't even think it's actually a leftist party in the real sense of it. So we don't know what these parties are standing for. All we know is that politicians are struggling to grab power at the center and in the state.
All right,
that's all we have seen.
So
and
from
so
what
they
you
are
have
very
said,
desperate.
From what you have said, the desperation has always been there.
Yeah, it's always been there. And it shouldn't be so.
So there are certain people who are saying that maybe the perks of offices in Nigeria, if they are not there or if they are not as much as they are, maybe people will not be so desperate to occupy these offices.
Well, you can talk about the perks, of
because if people know that it's work that you're going to do, maybe you won't be so desperate.
But the reason why we are where we are today is that there's work that ought to be done which people don't do. You understand? We have a lot of work. You see, if you become a governor, for instance, if you are a governor of a state, you have a lot of work to do. You have to provide social services. You know, one of the things that we have ignored is the fact that the governor is not there to demonstrate that he's the luckiest person or to demonstrate that he's wealthy or successful. He has to provide social service. You know, for you to accept that position, you must ensure that, look, the education system works. You must ensure that, there's water, there's health facility, there are roads. You know, there are things that will make people, comfortable. There's more security. But when all these things are not being provided, but you sit on a high chair, collecting money from the center, collecting tax and spending.
Are the people really demanding these things? Are these things a priority for the people, the electors that go to vote, really? Are they really priority? Because from the narratives and from all the discussions we've seen in campaigns and all of that, it doesn't look like this social services that you talk about is at the front burner, of deciding who gets to become one.
I think what has happened is this. Nigerians have got to a point that they know that this thing should be given. They know that the government should provide A, B, C, D, E, F. And they make requests. Government, do this for us, do that for us. Even when politicians go to communities to campaign, so when I get there, I will be sure that your roads are okay. For instance, you see, there is what to talk about, or what to call the budget process. Now, when you want to, do a budget for a year, a particular year, you are supposed to go to the communities. And the communities say, these are our needs. Then you now include these things in the budget. You understand? And these things ought to be done. You know, the people know what government should do for them. Government knows what they should do for the people.
Dr. what Ayuba is saying is, if the people know what they want, are they really demanding? Because we saw that they are pushing forward the ethnic issues and religious issues, even in the selection or election of the person. So it doesn't look as if the ability of the person to provide these things is on the front burner.
It's quite unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate that ethnic and religious issues are taking the front burner in Nigeria, and it's the politicians who are making them issues. It's the politicians who tell them, oh, this one is a Muslim, don't vote for him. This one is a Christian, don't vote for him. This one does not attend my church, don't vote for him. This one does not belong to our state. It's the politicians who are whipping up this sentiment. It is not the people. You see,
so if really the social services that you talk about, it's of concern to the people, why should these things matter? Why should some of these issues thrown up by the politicians matter to them? Why should they take it to heart? Why should they, so seriously and so passionately, count on those things as though they are the main issues that matter?
Yeah, I think enlightenment has to come in. You see, if you look at elections in Nigeria, it has always been about ethnicity and religion over the years. Not just the 2023 election. The 64-65 election was about religion and ethnicity. All over the years. 83 election was also about it. So what I'm saying is that Nigerians need to come out of this sentiment. The important thing for any country, security and economy. That is what is important. But as far as Nigeria is concerned, the politicians have elevated religion and ethnicity over and above security, economy, and the welfare of the people.
Okay, let's talk
and it shouldn't be so.
Yes, let's talk about the role of security here. You said focus should be on security. Let's get your own thoughts. We have a story here where 2 people were killed in Taraba State as a result of a clash or a fracas that ensued between the police and the army, close to in an election season, in a moment where they are supposed to be providing security and protecting our democracy. Here you have security personnel clashing and fighting to the extent of killing themselves. What does that say? Now, if you have thugs coming to disrupt collation centers, and now you have security personnel fighting themselves, what does that say really?
Actually, I think it has to do with interagency rivalry, because we have seen that some powerful, put it in code now, politicians, have maybe soldiers and policemen who are protecting their interests during the election. And so the rivalry between the soldiers and the policemen is what we are seeing. It's quite unfortunate that is happening. I spoke to one police officer who used to monitor elections. I said, why are you not going to work, to monitor election? He said, no, I don't want to go. I said, why don't you want to go? He said, well, when we go for election, assignment, we are always told what to do. When you go there, this is what you must do, that is what you must do. And one of the things he said shocked me. He said, look, we are told that when you get there, even if you see thugs and misbehaving, do nothing, because they are only political thugs, they are not armed robbers. So they told them that they are just part of the whole political and power struggle. So, if you see thugs, don't lift a finger.
So thugs are now recognized.
Now, so if you now see,
political process,
you can now see why, soldiers and policemen will clash. If they represent different interests, perhaps, candidate A has soldiers behind him, and candidate B had policemen behind him, and maybe something untoward is happening during the election.
But isn't that a clear
process.
violation of the code of conduct that was given to them before the election? Because I do know that before this particular election, there was one that was prepared and provided to all security personnel that were going to take part in this election.
Yeah, it's about all the codes have been violated.
So shouldn't there be sanctions for all of this?
All the codes have been violated. Even the codes that INEC even created for itself. INEC has violated this own code. So policemen have violated their code. Even politicians who signed peace accord and all those things, they say we are going to ensure that whatever is the outcome we accept. They also are violating all the codes. So it's very unfortunate that is happening in Nigeria. Because as far as elections are concerned, should bring out, the kind of candidates who are going to work for the country. But now we are not seeing that. The kind of people that are coming up are people that are propped up by some politicians, are those who are so powerful enough to buy their way, to use violence, to force themselves upon the people.
All right,
that's the kind of election that we have just had.
All right, Doctor, talking about institution, we just talked about the security. Now let's talk about INEC. I saw a CDD report which said that distrust between the people and INEC was a problem. Now, this is an institution, irrespective of who is at the helm of affairs at any point. And it's a very critical institution to democracy and the growth of democracy in Nigeria. So if this distrust exists, where do we go from here?
Well, it's very... INEC has the responsibility of, boosting people's confidence in that institution. It's the role of INEC to do so. Because as long as people don't trust INEC, it affects the image of INEC, number one, and it affects the credibility of what INEC does. For instance, I don't know the number of voters that came out in this election, but it will be far below the number of voters that came out in the presidential election. Because people believe that INEC did not do the right thing when the presidential election took place. Some areas, especially the presidential election, people believe that INEC was not unbiased. Now, in this election, this one that has happened, the governorship election, you hear about papers being moved from place to place. You have people moving from one place to another, doctoring documents. And INEC is supposed to say no. INEC is supposed to say no. In fact, there was... I was doing a kind of research for a write-up. One man called Eyo Eswa, he was the first electoral umpire in 1964-65. Do you know that when this man discovered that politicians were misbehaving, he resigned? He said, I'm no longer doing this because I cannot guarantee a free and fair election. I cannot guarantee that INEC, the electoral empire that I had, can deliver a free and fair election under this atmosphere. He told politicians to their face that this one, I cannot do. He resigned and left. Okay. You understand? But as long as INEC cannot look at politicians in the face and say no to them, if INEC cannot look at politicians and say no to them, I think MAI did something close to that.
Well, these days, INEC says it's more of a job of the judiciary, the courts, to decide that. Because for every irregularity or for every concern that have been raised by political party agents, they always say... Well,
I think I just hope that the courts themselves, they will actually do the right thing. Because there is this phrase that they use in dealing with electoral issues. They say substantial compliance. And there was time I was doing a piece about some of these elections. When Buhari complained about, I think, the 2007 election, which even Yaradua said was not free and fair. Buhari went to court, up to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, well, you have evidence that in Cross River there was this, in this place there were these irregularities. Yeah. But they say that there was no substantial evidence. When Atiku also went to court over, I think, one of the 2011, one of the elections, I can't remember the judiciary said, well, we have evidence that, but it's not substantial enough. So we are just hoping that, our Supreme Court, our judiciary will go beyond talking about substantial to let us do something that is specific, that they ought to be.
Okay, Doctor, we don't have time, but in 1 minute, there's a new report now that ranks Nigeria as the 95th most happiest country in the world. I would like your take on that.
95th most happiest. How many countries were evaluated? Maybe no more than 150.
Yes, so in the world, it says in the world. So I presume it's all the countries.
Well, I think it's good to be first. If you are the most happiest country in the world, it's better. Yeah. But when you are about 90 something, like when I was in primary school, we always look forward to first, second, third. If your name is not among the four, maybe up to 7th or 8th. But if you go to number 10 position, nobody will clap hand for you, and it was an unfortunate error where they will stand.
Nigeria will have to unseat Finland in that category for them to be the most.
Well, I think what we need is provision of social infrastructure. That's what Nigeria
and our
needs.
Happiness will increase.
Yes, social infrastructure. For instance, I mean, if you need fuel, you go to a fuel station, you get fuel. You know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have to go because of time. We appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Theophilus Abba is the director of the Elite Trust Foundation, joining us for the review on all our papers. Now we'll take a short break, and then when we return, Daybreak will continue. Join us again.
Marte, Howell, Biu, and Maiduguri Metropolis results were announced. At the end, Governor Zulum, who was the APC candidate, polled 545,542, while the PDP scored 82,147 votes. INEC's returning officer, Professor Jude Rabo, thereafter declared incumbent Governor Zulum winner of the 2023 governorship elections.
4. That Umar Babagana of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is in turn elected. Dated this 20th day of March 2023. Thank you very much for listening.
For many observers, the election is a referendum on the first term of Governor Zulum, whom many believe has done well, hence his re-election. Bitrus Kuruti, Trust TV News, Maiduguri.
Thank you, Bitrus Krutsi, for that report. Now let's move over to Benue State, where the Independent National Electoral Commission on Monday declared Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia as winner of the state governorship election. Jimmy Azande monitored the situation and brings us this report.
Announcing the result, the state returning officer, Professor Farouk Kuta, said APC candidate Reverend Father Hyacinth Alia of the All Progressives Congress polled a total of 473,933 votes to defeat Titus Oba, candidate of the PDP, who polled 223,913 votes, and Right Honorable Herman Hembe of Labour Party, who polled 42,882 votes.
Party APC, 473,933 votes. PDP, 223,913 votes. Party LP, 41,881 votes. Hyacinth Alia of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
I would like to congratulate my opponents from the other parties for making it an interesting contest. With the anxious period of politicking is over. Now is the time to unite and face the challenges of development. Our state, Benue, needs a total reset.
A cross-section of Benue residents described the process as credible and peaceful.
The election has shown clearly that Nigerians are democratically growing because they'll be able to express their franchise in different perspectives. The normal mindset of viewers or people was that it will follow one pattern, but this time around it has given people surprises, and I think that is good for democracy. It is giving us a very competitive platform for the leadership of this country.
The residents want the winner to act with decorum and show magnanimity and sportsmanship after his victory.
The seat is not just for themselves, it's for the entire people, even those who contested against them. Because now when you win an election, you are no longer representing your political party alone. You cannot say you go outside and you say you are the governorship candidate, you are the governor of APC, PDP, Labour, ABGA, NPP, SDP. No, you say you are the people, you are the governor of Benue State and any other state for that matter. So whatever may have been the difference.
All right, now renowned election analysts working with the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, have expressed concerns on electoral gains and emerging threat to Nigeria's democratic consolidation. Trust TV Shafiu Suleiman reports that the election analyst think tank also helped on the increased citizens' vigilance and decisive action against masterminds of electoral violence, fraud, and impunity for a sustained democratic experience. The report.
While acknowledging the impact of technology application for the conduct of the 2023 elections and improve voter awareness and resilience, the CDD election analysts are worried over increased electoral violence, manipulations, amongst others.
It was most apparent in Zamfara, where bandits and vigilante groups were reported to have threatened voters with death if they voted for the incumbent. We also saw similar incidents of voter intimidation across all the geopolitical zones, but these were also mostly pronounced in the southeast, where something like 10% of the polling units we observed saw some element of voter intimidation compared to 4.7% nationwide.
Vote buying was higher in the southeast of Nigeria. At the same time, intimidation was more observed in the southeast and the south-south part of the country itself. And the most impacted by low deployment of security personnel, again, was in the southeastern part of the country.
They believe that enhanced citizens' vigilance and resilience, in addition to consolidation on technology application in the electoral process, will pave way for a more transparent and acceptable outcome.
We are still grappling for the vote counts, but for some places, for their resilience and determination to protect their votes, they were able to succeed. For example, in Kano, there was so much effort to undermine the voters' votes in Kano, but I think for the resilience of the people, they were able to insist that their votes must not be truncated.
One of the important issues about this election is more and more parties are winning seats, are gaining votes, and that therefore we are developing a more genuine multi-party electoral system. I think this is a significant gain.
The analysts also call for decisive action against electoral offenders to address rising cases of impunity, suppression, and subversion of public will. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Thank you, Shafiu, for that report. Now, this next report captures some of the results as announced by INEC from various states. Let's take a look.
The Independent National Electoral Commission has declared the governorship election inconclusive. INEC's returning officer, Yusuf Saidu, made a declaration on Monday in Birnin Kebbi, the state capital. Saidu said the move became necessary due to breaches of electoral law that led to cancellation of results in polling units in 20 of the 21 local government areas. He said irregularities such as destruction of election materials, disruption of electoral proceedings, and overvoting marred the poll. Before declaring the election inconclusive, APC was leading with 388,258 votes as against PDP's 342,980 votes. In Niger State, the All Progressive Congress APC candidate Umar Mohamed Bago has been declared winner of the governorship election in the state. Announcing the result at the INEC headquarters, the state coalition officer Clement Alawa said Bago polled 469,896 votes to defeat his closest opponent Issa Liman Katigi of the People's Democratic Party, who scored 389,476 votes. Bago won in 20 out of the 25 local government areas of the state, while the candidate of the PDP won in 5 local government areas of Mokwa, Munya, Edati, Lavu, and Bako. Meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission has declared the candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Ahmed Aliyu, as the winner of the governorship election in Sokoto State. Aliyu polled a total of 453,661 votes to defeat the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Saidu Ubandoma, who scored 404,632 votes. Ali won the election with 49,029 votes, having won in 18 out of the 23 local government areas of the state. The PDP candidate won in 5 local government areas. The returning officer, Amayawu Hamisu, said a total of 879,776 votes were cast, out of which 15,357 votes were rejected. He gave the total valid vote at 864,419.
In Delta State, the governorship candidate of People's Democratic Party, PDP, Sharif Obolowori, polled 360,234 votes to emerge winner. Deputy Senate President and candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Ovi Omo Agege, polled 240,299 to come second, while Ken Pella of the Labour Party polled 48,047 votes to come third. In Cross River State, the governorship candidate of All Progressive Congress, Prince Bati Edet, won 15 of the 18 local government areas to emerge winner. He defeated incumbent senator for Cross River Central, Sandy Ono of the People's Democratic Party, to emerge winner. In Rivers State, the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Sim Fubara, has extended his lead as the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC announced the election results in 4 additional local government areas of the state. Fubara now has a total of 286,224 votes from the 21 local government areas, while his closest rival, Tonya Cole of the All Progressive Congress, has 86,211 votes so far. In Ebonyi, the candidate of All Progressive Congress APC has been declared the winner of the March 18th governorship election in the state. Declaring the result at the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC State Headquarters in Abakaliki, the state returning officer, Charles Igwe, said Inwifuru has a total of 199,131 votes cast across the 13 local government areas of the state. In Abia State, Alex Oti of the Labour Party has won a total of 10 out of the 16 local government area results so far declared by the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC before the commission suspended collation of the Abia governorship election. Oti polled a total of 171,747 votes, while Oke Ahiwe of the People's Democratic Party PDP scored a total of 79,477 votes after winning 5 local government areas. In Enugu State, the Independent National Electoral Commission has also suspended collation of results due to irregularities. Prior to the suspension, the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party PDP in Enugu State, Peter Mba, had won 9 out of the 17 local government areas already announced.
All right, thank you so much, Kabir, for that very, very detailed report of the elections as conducted in some of the states. Now, we'll take a look at the discussion right here. The Independent National Electoral Commission has declared the March 18 governorship election in Adamawa State inconclusive. the candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the state, Senator Aishatu Dahiru, famously known as Binani, scored 390,275 votes, while the incumbent governor, Ahmadu Fintiri, the People's Democratic Party candidate, polled 421,524 votes. Now, INEC declared the election inconclusive due to the margin of votes in that election. So far, the results of the governorship polls have been announced. The APC takes the lead with 14 states, and the PDP with 5 states. Beg your pardon, APC 15 states, and the PDP with 7 states. The New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, taking 1 state, which is Kano, and the election in Kebbi State was similarly declared inconclusive. So this is what we know so far about the governorship and state assembly elections. This is the 3rd day since the elections. That's on Saturday. We have in the studio a researcher for the Center for Democracy and Development, Dingefa Angalapu, in the studio, and also Henry Ijoma, public affairs analyst. They'll be joining us to bring more perspectives to what we have seen in the past few days on the governorship and state assembly election. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, let me start with you, Dingefa. I'm certain that the CDD has a situation room where they monitor reports coming in from different states of the country. And we have gotten to that point now where we have seen that inconclusive, the word inconclusive elections, a word that some Nigerians don't want to hear in an election, but we are having to face it, in Adamawa State, in Kebbi, Enugu, and in Abia State. Take us through why we are seeing this.
Well, thank you very much, and then good morning, Nigeria. Well, we observed the elections. I mean, we deployed over 1,200 observers to the field, and we had also done, several research, into the governorship elections, looking at the character of states, and then looking at also the character of political elites and all of that. So for us, this was actually expected. Yeah, because if you look at some of the intricacies in those states, and then people not being not willing to play by the rules, I mean it is expected, because we've also seen that there is a gap between now the Electoral Act and then the knowledge of the politicians of the Electoral Act. So they don't even realize that there have been several changes that have been made, really. So they don't want to play by the rules, and if you don't want to play by the rules, these things will definitely come. So for us, basically three key issues were outstanding in this election. So one was the issue of voter suppression and intimidation. So we had it across the country. I mean, so you hear the Lagos zone. The Lagos zone is the loudest, but I mean, you had it across the country. You had it in Enugu, you had it in Bayelsa, you had it in Rivers, you had it in Kebbi, you had it in Adamawa. It was just widespread. So that was a very, I mean, that was something that we actually watched, and something that, I mean, that we didn't like about the process. And secondly, it is the issue of vote trading. So remarkably, vote trading became worse. I mean, vote buying and vote selling really became worse in the governorship elections, beyond what we saw in the presidential elections. So while we saw that there were pockets of vote buying, this time it was so widespread. People buying votes with money, and then with also commodities, and some with also vouchers. I owe you vouchers, the widespread vote buying. And it was done across. It was no longer the dominant thing where you have just 2 dominant political parties buying the vote. So we had even smaller parties springing up, buying votes. So it was a big thing. Then the third big thing really for us is the effect of the presidential election on the governorship elections, really. So what we saw was a diminished trust in INEC, and that really affected the process. So from the data we got, I mean, because at this time, the Nigerians are very emotional. They just want to hear that all of the elections, everything was bad, and it suits the emotions of people. But really, from the data we got, we realized the fact that INEC staff, were earlier this time. Logistics was a bit better. So if you look at the national average that we saw from the data we have, about 14 minutes past 9, many polls were actually open, and about INEC staff, 69.3% of INEC staff had already arrived the different polling unit before 8:30. So for us, that was a good thing. But the diminished trust in INEC affected the whole process. People did not want to give INEC a chance, and that affected the process. So people did not want to come out as they would, and that also affected the way INEC, was able to convince people. So we saw in Cross River State where INEC staff was killed, and I also saw in Imo State where some were actually kidnapped, abducted. So for us, it's actually a very serious thing. So really, there are three key things. Like I said, we had the issue of vote buying, we had the issue of voter suppression, and all of that, the violence, and also the security issues. Because really for us, this election, that the last governorship election, borders on security. So for us, the security agencies had to have stepped up. Although we had situations where in Bayelsa State, people were Operation Delta Safe arrested some people. They were impersonating the military in the Nembe local government. We had in Borno State where attempts to terrorist attempts at a collation center was actually averted. But they could have done more. They could have done more, because these are the fundamental issues. Because really, maybe the two are actually evil, rigging an election and then rigging peace. But I mean, people will need to necessarily be alive to vote. So when you give them, when they see glaringly that I am not safe enough to go and vote, they will pull out from the process. And democracy is really about the participation of the people. So we are really worried about it.
All right. My question is to Mr. Ijeoma. The thing is this: when he was talking, all the things he mentioned, the politicians were beneath all of them. They were the key actor. And then he said something. He said it was because the politicians were not aware of the changes in the Electoral Act. Is that possible, considering that they knew they were going into this competition? Right. So is it possible that some of those things happened because they were not aware of the changes in the Electoral Act, or was there any other reason?
Well, not necessarily because they are not aware. But you see, it is in the nature of politicking to feign ignorance of things that you consider may be to your detriment. Our people have not evolved to the point where they understand that they are supposed to be the primary beneficiaries of the improvement in our electoral process. So their mindset is always about how do we circumvent the system. Meanwhile, if the system becomes better, the likelihood that they will benefit more. You see, some of the votes people are getting because they have had cause to go and manipulate the process. They probably may be getting more if the process was more transparent. So it becomes an issue of trust in themselves. We are seeing a situation where people don't trust that the people really like them, the people want to vote for them. So they are more interested in ways of circumventing. So I would not agree completely that they are unaware of the changes. They are aware of the changes and they probably know the implications, but they think that the easiest way would be to circumvent these systems because we want to be sure that we don't lose. But just to add that when you ask the question about why we are seeing this kind of situation where there have been inconclusive elections in a few places, I would like to look at it from a positive perspective, that if people went into a competition and they were very sure that I will win, then it is no longer democracy. You're going into a competition where everybody is seeking to be endorsed by the people. So you know that definitely if this is democracy, people will have their preferences across board, whichever party, whichever personalities. So you are going to see stiff competition like we have seen. I think it is a sign of improvement, so to speak, that we are able to have situations where elections are considered to be inconclusive. In the sense, like if you take Adamawa, for instance, the consideration is more about the margin of win. To say, okay, so we have a lot of cancelled votes or places where votes did not happen at all that have a reasonable number of accredited persons who have collected PVC who, if they voted, could determine the actual outcome of the elections. If you look at it from the standpoint of a neutral person who seeks to see that our democracy improves, and that is something positive. But for the real actors in the system, some may begin to think that, oh, because we are in the lead, this has to be manipulated to favor the other persons. I would like that we look at that as some of the positives of the growth of democracy.
All right, now in terms of the process, disruption of the process and the safety, violence, and the thuggery that we've seen in these state elections, is it to be expected? And to be specific, it looks more like we had those cases more dominant in the southern part of the country. I don't know, but I may be wrong. But in your assessment, what exactly happened that we saw the kind of thuggery that we saw in some of the states?
Yeah, well, first and foremost is the case of desperation. Our people are absolutely desperate. But the last time I was here, I hinged on the point that democracy is a little bit of intellectual work combined with freedom. You cannot have a democracy where people do not think about the process, where people do not think about the implication. If we are prepared to practice democracy, then it has implications on how things happen. It has implications on all, so if we agree that we want to practice democracy, then it means we are agreeing that even if this person is not the preferred candidate, if this person is not the most prepared for a position, if the greater population of people want him, then that is the person we should go with. People must now begin to think of the implication of democracy and be prepared to accept the outcomes. You had this predominant issue of thuggery in the South because in some sense, we have people who had tried to groom individuals, preparing them for all kinds of violent engagements. You have people who think that when you have these bouncers, you have these guys who have watchers to fight for you, then that's how you can make progress. Besides, even in the places you see this in the South, are the places where it looks like the stakes are really high in terms of the economy of the state and, of course, the rivalry between the competing persons. But most importantly is what we have done to our population. The capacity of our human capital is really diminishing by the day. In a situation where you can have people who volunteer themselves to go and do things that are unspeakable just because you want somebody to win an election, just an election. The election itself is not the end, it's a means. So the person who has won a governorship election now has at least 4 years to rule. That's a long time. The event of election is just one day, at most 2 days or 3 days, as the case may be. And if people could condescend so low to doing things that are so unspeakable, things that are beneath them, then it just tells you that we have not been investing our human capital.
But then, okay, to you, please. Why do politicians want to win at all costs? Why is it so important to win? Because when you go into a competition, it's either you win or you lose. But in Nigeria, it appears as if they want to always win, and that is why we have some of those problems that we have.
Yeah. First, we first must understand the existential conditions in Nigeria, the predominant value system in Nigeria. So we've seen a situation where we have a very low democratic culture. So democracy is about win and lose, and many people have not come to the terms with the fact that, sometimes I can win, sometimes I can lose. And really it is also about, politicians not serving the needs of the people. So, when you have not served the needs of the people appropriately, you are always afraid to go back to them. And when you can't go back to them, you look for all means possible, to subvert the process. It is really about the democratic culture. So for example, let us look at governance as an hat. Every hat ought to benefit its object. For example, the ultimate beneficiary of medicine is the patient, really. So if you look at that, if you look at the politicians, you will see that governance ought to benefit the citizens ultimately. But when you do not have the skill, the requisite knowledge to benefit the citizenry, you become so afraid. And the second thing is how we play politics in Nigeria. So politics is mixed with lots of ethnicity, and the fact that the capture of power serves private ends and sectional interests. So you feel that, I mean, it is only when someone from an ethnic group gets into power that I will possibly benefit. It is only when someone from a religious group gets into power that I will possibly benefit. And when you see politics that way, you become so angry when someone from your ethnic group is not winning. You become so angry when you see someone from a religious group not winning, because for you, for the next 4 years, it is done. And why the local politics are very contentious, I see Nigerian federalism more as a polygamous home, really. So you see the federal government as the father, having many wives. So when you see that the federal government has failed you, sometimes your only hope now relies on a responsible mother, which is the governor. So that is why the local politics are becoming very contentious. That is why you will see that, okay, this is Nigeria. You will say the federal government has failed, but some states are still succeeding more than other states. So when it comes to those states, people now feel we need to do all things possible to enthrone our son in the state. If not, we will not benefit from the federal. We will also not benefit from the state. So it becomes very contentious, really. So it is a different dynamic, the character of the people. I mean, so if you look at behaviorism, you cannot really say, although we talk about strong institutions, and I'm a strong believer of strong institutions, but individuals with character, values, patriotism, discipline, make strong institutions. So when you have people of consistent behaviors, you know, in terms of good values system, they will make good politicians. Okay. But if you don't have that kind of people, they would want to subvert the process at all means. So it's really about the democratic culture of Nigeria.
All right, so talking about institutions and people, the EU has given its, should I say, verdict now on INEC. It says that the elections were marred by violence and vote buying. And the EU is not alone in this. A lot of other international observers have made similar, I would say, appraisal on INEC, you know, and all that. Talking about INEC as an institution, how can we get, or should I say, how can we get Nigerians to really have confidence in the institutions? There have been a lot of allegations of compromise on the part of INEC. A lot of people say, look, you probably have even partisan people, you know, in certain capacities within INEC and all that. We saw a statement from the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, raising some of these allegations to that effect. So how do we ensure that only credible people, like you talk, non-partisan people, are actually involved with the activities of INEC? And this trend now of using vice chancellors or academicians as returning officers in some states, there are people who are, you know, now beginning to raise eyebrow about that, saying that, look, do we really need some of these people in the process? Because you really can't tell from among them who is partisan and who is not.
Actually, it will begin with the last point you have raised, where we bring in persons from the outside, like the vice chancellors. You see, INEC is a huge structure that is supposed to be completely independent, and they have rules of engagement for their staff. I know that when you hire these people from the outside, yes, you're expecting that they will be equally independent in their own thinking and mind, but it will benefit us more if our elections are concluded and superintended over by people who are considered to be INEC staff, who probably have signed to certain rules or codes of conduct. You know, because so INEC, within the framework that it exists within, has rules of engagement for elections. So if you have people who are recruited as staff, so this idea of ad hoc staff, well, I know for the implications in terms of service, you know, holding a lot of people who necessarily do not have.
Yes, I was going to ask, how practical is that, considering that they only get busy after every other 4 years?
If you go to those granular levels where you need people at polling units and all that, you could deal with ad hoc staffs, no problem. But you see, at that point of collation, like the returning officers, for a major election like the presidential election, why are you bringing outsiders? Use people who are within the INEC, who have signed to the highest codes of conduct. All right? And of course, because you are a staff of INEC, you are expected ab initio that you are never going to be partisan. Just like you who is a journalist. But for the mere fact that you are a public figure, you are a journalist, you ordinarily shouldn't be partisan. So you know that on your own, right from the get-go. So that should be the same for those who are returning officers. You don't bring somebody who is already involved in the daily politics. But that is not to say these people have had any major, taken any major actions to thwart the process. But I'm saying in terms of building institutions that will survive, we should be able to look at that and use people within INEC. The other point is about what we think about INEC and whether people can trust INEC. You see, when you are an umpire in a competition, you serve a role that is almost like a judicial role, a quasi-judicial role for that matter. So you must be seen to be fair. You may create processes that enables people see that, okay, this is what we are doing, this is how to do it. Those processes are there. But even in the administration of the process, you have to be seen by your body language, by your utterances, and even the way you respond to the complaints that you receive, that you are trying to be fair to all people. INEC should be the first ladder in the judicial process for elections. So if we have to leave it to the judiciary to determine whether we are fair enough, then we have not done our work from the beginning.
Which leads me to the next issue now, which is sort of related. A lot of, according to some of the party agents in some states, irregularities that have been experienced were brought to the fore, and complaints were made at the point of collation of results. And it's more like a cliche now. If you are not happy with the outcome,
go to court.
Go to the court, right? And we know that the Electoral Act allows INEC to review, even though some of them said they are going to review within 7 days, but that will be after the collation of the results, and then they will now. But then we see declaration of winners, before that review takes place. How does it affect the, whether or not the trust issue here now, and whether or not we are going to see that review for you now?
Yeah. So thank you. That's a very interesting question. So really, what we have seen and what we are also sincerely against is a court, making decisions in terms of technical issues rather than decisions reflecting the will of the people. And that really begins with the point you've made. People raising genuine concerns, and INEC saying go to the court. Of course, the judiciary is part of the democratic process, but like my colleague here I just said, it should begin with INEC. When some concerns are raised that are within the capacity of INEC to address at the moment, I really think that they should address them immediately. So, for example, there are concerns about some deliberate subversion of the process, and it is glaring. It is glaring, and you can see it also. I mean, you don't really need to tell them to go to the court. You could do the best you could do at that time before you can now really take the matter to the court. But just to add to what he said about trusting INEC, the thing really is not about just being bringing in ad hoc staff and bringing university personnel. The thing really is about reward and punishment. So for a long time in this country, people have done things and then gone scot-free. So whether you are an ad hoc staff, whether you are brought in from the university, once there is an established crime against in the electoral process, and you are found to be involved in it, you should go in for it. Really, once we begin to see people being punished severely for electoral crimes, we will begin to see changes. Whether you bring someone from the university, you will see changes. Whether it's from the NYC, you will see changes. Whether it is from the INEC, from the electoral empire, we will see changes. But once you don't punish, a bad behavior that is not punished, it is reinforced.
All right, Mr. Ijomo, as part of the EU report by the chief observer, he actually said that because of the way INEC conducted this, it made Nigerians to lose appetite in the system and in the election. Now, this is a huge statement. Yeah. So what do you think the next president, when sworn in, can do? Should we expect a total overhaul of the INEC to ensure that this trust is regained?
Well, not necessarily a total overhaul, but you see, INEC is an institution that needs to continuously improve its own process. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a burden on INEC to show to the people that we are in control of what we are doing. You make the rules governing the elections. So within those rules, there should be some level, some provisions for redress that people. So let's take, for instance, that a polling unit agent, a party agent says, I am not comfortable with the results that has been presented from this place. I think I have a different view. There should be a process within the period of the collation that allows for his views to be heard and considerations, some kind of immediate investigation or review, not when you have declared the results. Because I have a complaint. You have not addressed my complaint that you declared the results. What you are saying in essence is that I don't care. So I think we may not necessarily have to do a total overhaul of INEC. There are some positives from the elections we must take down. So let's isolate the issues. Let's isolate the places where there are challenges and address those challenges. And look at the flip side. So if we say the use of the beavers, for instance, or uploading of results on the IREV were the issues, what do we then do to improve on this? Then the loss of trust from the people. We need to go back to the people, because democracy is about the people. And if we must sustain the practice of democracy, then we must get the people to continuously be involved. And my immediate reaction to Nigerians will be that with all the shenanigans that have happened, with all the despair and confusion, I think we have made some considerable gains. There are places where, sincerely, the will of the people prevailed. I sat with someone who observed the elections in Benue, and he told me, see, I have observed the elections in Benue, and I've been very partisan in Benue. I can tell you for sure, and this person is in the opposition party in Benue, and told me this election was not rigged. You see the man that won this election, he won straight up. I'm not from his party, but I can tell you, I interviewed people who came, and these people were prepared to vote. There are places where the will of the people have prevailed, and I think we can only make more gains if more people turn up.
Okay, so at the end of the day, we have a big issue here. We always, when we have discussions like this, come up with recommendations and, contributions and suggestions as to what's the way out and what we need to do. But someone needs to implement those. Someone needs to take seriously all these things. In some instances, we already have laws, we already have policies, but issue of implementation is just the problem. Do you think that we are expecting too much maybe from politicians? Because at the end of the day, they will be the ones in government. They will be the ones to get to decide what flies and what doesn't. They will be the ones to make the laws. So do you think that it will be expecting too much from them to take care of some of the irregularities that we talk about, considering
Absolutely.
the fact that they are beneficiaries of this system?
Absolutely. And I had cause to speak to some group of young people, and I told them that if we waited for those who are beneficiaries of a corrupt system to sanitize the system, we are fooling ourselves. And I use a very ordinary analogy. There had been cases where you say, oh, there are, I don't want to call the name of any force now. There are regulatory agents of the law in Abuja, for instance, who are supposed to apprehend people who beat traffic light. And what we hear most times is that people beat the traffic light, they don't face the penalties, they just take 500 naira and they move on. And I said, let's assume that I was a traffic offense regulator, and I stood out on the street waiting to collect 500 from everybody who will beat the traffic light. And I stayed for a whole day, nobody beat the traffic light. The next day, will I come? I will be discouraged. We as a people need to reduce the supply of bad followership as well. The politicians will not, for their own selfish interest, be prepared to completely sanitize the system that they benefit from. So it behoves on all of us. So if I am made the INEC chairman, for instance, what should be my disposition? If I am a returning officer, what should be my disposition? So by the time we who are not the politicians find ourselves in positions of authority, what do we do to reflect the kind of society that we want for ourselves? Because there's a sense in which we encourage them when we act along to say, even the people want what we are doing. So we must have, first of all, that disposition that shows them that we are not interested in all this bad processes that you want to be involved in, so that those who are called upon. And I had a fantastic idea. I was part of a group that did some kind of post-mortem of the presidential election. And I had a fantastic idea, testimony from a core member, a young person, 24, who was offered money. And he told the party agent, you know what, I came here to conduct elections, please go. And they turned him down. At that level, imagine people who are holding higher offices. We need to be above board.
All right, there was something that was prominent in this election, the use of ethnicity and religion. And so to the point that even what the people that were vying for the seat, they weren't asked what it was that they were going to do if they won. Now, when you talk about it, people say, oh, it's the politicians that use this ethnicity and religion to divide us. Like Mr. Ijomo is saying, it behoves the people to change. Do you think going forward, because in 2023, I didn't expect religion and ethnicity to define our elections. So do you think going forward that could change?
Yeah, well first, this is our reality. It is our reality, and we just cannot run away from it. Identity politics is something that is so strong in Nigeria. But like I always tell people, it will deal with socialization process. This is a country where in 1993 we voted above ethnic lines. So we saw where people were voting, voting competence, and we saw presidential candidates losing their states. This was same Nigeria. So really, it is really about the governance process. When a governance process becomes fair to everyone, people will come out of their enclaves. But when you say that you don't have a space in national politics, you will simply backslide to your ethnic enclave. And that is what is happening in Nigeria. So what has happened in Nigeria over the years is that people have been treated very unfairly. Now we are talking about just the 3 ethnic groups in Nigeria, but we also forget that we have 250 ethnic groups. Where are the minorities in these discussions? So it is really a very serious challenge. People are hungry, and I really believe that after these elections, there should be a strong effort towards national reconciliation, a very strong effort towards national reconciliation. I do not agree that Nigerians are not patriotic. I do not. It is really because of the existential condition and what they are faced with. I think ethnicity is used as a sense of survival, really, because I tell people that in the South, if somebody wants to buy suya, he does not ask of the Ijo man. He goes to the Awusa Fulani man to get suya, because that really is where he will get the best suya. And so really, if I go to the hospital too, I don't ask whether the man is an Igbo man or a Yoruba man. I just want to get treated, really. So it is really about all of these things. We cooperate in several ways, really, but it is something that the politicians are using to divide the people, and it is because of they are creating lack, really. So I have a postulation, really, that the reason why ethnicity holds sway in this country is the lack of production. Production is at the barest minimum. So for example, if the Ajokita still was working properly, and then we have different ethnic groups working in that place, we will better interact. If the railways and the roads that lead the north to the south are well connected, we will not be judging each other based on media framing, social media framings. I can come to the north and realize the fact that, oh, the northern people are very good people. You can come to the south and then go back and know that the southern people are very good people, but the road that should even connect us are bad. The production process that we should work together are bad. So how do we do this thing? So for me, it is really about reconciliation, and we need to deal with production. The Dangote refinery, I mean, if it comes on, it will employ several thousands of people. So imagine Nigerians working together in several productive ventures together. Don't you think of more united?
So what you just said now is very instructive, and it causes me to do a sort of reflection and a kind of comparison between the Nigeria of the 60s and 70s and the Nigeria of today. Do you think that there's probably a correlation between the way the country is now in terms of movement of people and connectivity and the way the socio-economic activities is being done at the moment?
Well,
and this mistrust, this mutual mistrust.
There are no absolutes to
it.
This could be a perspective that people are moving, not moving as much as they used to move before. People are not integrating as much as they used to be before. Even if you take the NYSC scheme, for instance, it has lost its relevance in the sense that it was designed to be a vehicle of cohesion. to allow people go to different places. But now you have people pick and choose where they want to serve. I've met somebody who grew up in Abuja, studied at Uni Abuja, and is serving in Abuja, and I say, you are depriving yourself of a lot of things. But I would say that I think we need to raise our consciousness, about who we truly are. The economic issues might be there, and I'm not taking that away. But I think we're beginning to retrogress in some sense, where we are looking at things from very narrow perspectives about ethnicity and religion. Because there's what you said about socialization and framing, social framing, is that there is a sense in which even if the politicians who you would think that are using these things as tools are pretending, there's a sense in which the people who listen to them, who do not have the capacity to criticize this, to interrogate it, will believe it. And you see the frenzy, the outburst we have seen in the last few days about people becoming ethnic champions is actually something that points to the fact that people are believing themselves. Because you will not see someone who is speaking with so much conviction about something that is completely wrong and equally comes out and tells you, I owe nobody apologies for what I have said. There's a sense in which they are beginning to believe themselves. How much more for those who are not as educated as them? So I think that we have a responsibility to begin to speak to the consciousness of our people, that we must go beyond that.
But do you think that the change between the 60s and 70s and now has anything to do with our general value system?
Well, I am one of the persons who really feel bad each time we have to talk about Nigeria today and we have to make comparisons of what has happened in the past. Because you know that the population was lower and we had just a few elites who probably at that time were even more altruistic in their approach to things. I think that in those days there was more education. And by education, I'm not talking about literacy. There was more education in those days than it is now. You see an average person who can read and write, but who does not understand what he or she is saying, the implications of what they're saying. The 1960 Nigeria may have been good if we put it in context, in comparison with what we are seeing now. But I think that the people are largely the same. What it meant is that our values did not move from where it was. If where we are now is what we are seeing, then it means we really never changed.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining on Africa Update and sharing these deep insights, really, I must say, because there's a connection in virtually all that we do as Nigerians with what we see even in our political space. Thank you so much, Dingefa Angalapu. He's a researcher with the Center for Democracy and Development, and also Henry Ijoma, who is a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us on Africa.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. In case you've missed, you can always catch up across all social media platforms, and I mean Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and even on TikTok. We are on TikTok. You can also watch us on live stream on YouTube, so you do not necessarily have to be in front of your TV screen all the time. You can watch us via your phone as you go, on the go. My name is Ayuba Ila. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Thank you for welcoming us into your homes this morning. Do well to join us same time, same station tomorrow. My name is Stella Iyaji, and do have a very pleasant day.